Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's hot on the table this week?
In an article written by Avril Fong, we learn about the latest installment of Marvel's What If Miles Morales series, What If Miles Morales Became Thor number 4, and how it sparked major controversy and backlash online, with fans calling out the comic book giant for racist depictions of black people and communities. The new Asgardian edition of Miles Morales sees the young Afro-Latino Spider-Man take up the helm of Thor Odinson in an edition celebrating 60 years of the friendly neighborhood web-slinger. Recently, the release of this new comic melding the two superheroes' backstories has stirred up a fair amount of controversy and critique online. What If Miles Morales Became Thor is written by Yehudi Mercado and has art by Luigi Zangaria and Paco Medina, none of whom are black themselves. The decision by writer Mercado to use the phrases "by Odin's fade," "Asgard in his hood," "bruv," "right up to your face and dish you" has been called out as a bad imitation of Black/African American Vernacular English, or AAVE, and a graffiti Mjolnir, Thor's hammer. Similarly, the artist's choices to show romanticized yet stereotypical depictions of minority cultures, communities, and urban living have been said to perpetuate racist archetypes. Responding to this controversy, Twitter user at Borg Posting heavily criticized the writer, saying, "Apparently, the writer is doubling down against criticism, saying that Miles Morales was invented by a white guy, which then I guess makes gross stereotypes and caricatures of black and brown people and their communities okay because a white dude says so." So, Andre, I want to ask you, why do you think Hollywood still allows white people to have way more opportunities to write stories about black characters and people of color?
Well, I think we all know the answer is racism, but
Period.
I do think that there is an even more ignorant reason as to why this keeps happening. Like, I think that when white Hollywood executives hear that their audiences want more stories revolving around people of color and black people on screen, that's the only thing that they hear. Their solution for that is just to create more diverse casts on screen, or in this case on paper. But that's not what we asked for. We asked for authentic stories told from voices and perspectives of those who have experienced life as part of the marginalized community that they are giving voice to. It's not about meeting a diversity quota or trying to be woke. It's about giving marginalized communities the same opportunities to tell their stories as cishet white men have had since the beginning. I mean, when things like this happen, it's just so disappointing because it's it's like these companies keep missing the point. Like, I don't
Hmm.
want to watch another gay coming of age story written by a straight person with no experience in the community. I don't want to hear about a trans person's experiences being written by a cis person who has never had to struggle with gender dysphoria. And I definitely don't want to read another story about a black person's experiences written from a white or non-black perspective. Like, this is the reason this is so disrespectful and offensive, outside of the obvious incorrect use of AAVE and overused stereotypes, is that this was the perfect opportunity for Disney slash Marvel to show marginalized communities that they care about their voices being heard. Just as they said that they would take extra care to listen to Peter Dinklage when he brought up the Snow White remake and how it could negatively impact the dwarfism community, they could do the same thing with all marginalized communities. But when I look at this comic and the fact that it passed through so many hands before making it to publication, all this makes me think is that yet again, whiteness and money still supersedes all. They want the benefits and support from those within the marginalized communities without actually employing people from those communities. And the fact that Marvel employed a Jewish Mexican man to tell the story of an Afro-Latina superhero without consulting or hiring an Afro-Latina to help tell the story, to me, is willful ignorance. But what really pisses me off is the fact that Yehudi Mercado was the only one who apologized for this comment, because he did. In a statement issued on Twitter, Mercado stated that he was pledging to donate what Marvel paid him for writing this comic to Brooklyn Book Bodega, which works to build literacy and get more books to kids in NYC. And while I do agree that part of the responsibility definitely does fall on him, the brunt of that responsibility should be on Marvel, because people have been dog walking Mercado, yet that same energy isn't being given to Marvel, who not only hired him, but edited and approved this comic for publication. And as a society, I think that we still hold a marginalized person more accountable than the larger, predominantly white conglomerate Marvel, right? Like, if anyone should have been making donations and apologizing, it should have been Marvel. Mercado's donation wasn't nearly as much as what Marvel could have donated from their $4 billion fortune. And even if Marvel did apologize and make some sort of pledge, either by money or just pretty words about how they'll work to include more diversity in their writers, the fact is, if you apologize and the issue persists, then it's not an apology, it's bullshit. But Daquon, I want to pass the question back to you. Why do you think this keeps happening?
Like you said, it's racism. And it's literally because when, these studios like Marvel want to make these new stories, quote unquote, about diverse cast, they want to go with the safe option. They want to go with the writers that they already know, the writers that they already know writes, something that is more marketable and profitable. They don't want to take a chance on new Black writers that they never worked with in the past. I mean, think about how often you see like that one token of representation as a writer writing literally every single part of representation for a certain studio or something like that. Like the amount of times Lin-Manuel Miranda has written about like diverse casts, because like they know who he is and they're not going to take a chance on anybody else like they would him. And it's really frustrating because you can tell the inauthentic voice of the characters. Like, I'm sorry, when I heard By Odin's Fade, I literally could not believe that somebody wrote that. Like, how do you write that? Who says that? And I think that's the biggest thing. I'm hearing these phrases and I'm like, nobody I know who actually speaks AAVE in any type of regional dialect says things like that. And so it creates not only this inauthentic voice, but, this caricature, because it's something that's so out there and so disconnected from reality. It's basically like watching a minstrelsy, because it's so damaging to the perceptions of Black people and Afro-Latinx people, because you don't see that authentic voice. You just get that character, you get that romanticization of, the hood and all of these other things. And it's like, no, we don't want to see this. Like you said, we want authentic stories. We not only want Black characters, but we want Black cast members. We not only want Black writers, we want Black, production assistants, Black executive producers. We want Black people and people of color all throughout the process. So we make sure that we are doing our due diligence with representing a community well. And it's especially frustrating because you see the times when these big companies do something right. Like Black Panther was monumental for so many Black people in this country. Encanto by Disney was so important for many Latinx and Afro-Latinx people, because people saw not only white Hispanic people and Latinx people, but they saw Latinx people of all different shades and colors and saw that core family structure. And so it's frustrating when we see something take a step forward, and instead of continuing to push the envelope they take that step forward and then they just go back to what they know best, and that's creating caricatures. And so I think that it's this problem that really needs to be solved in Hollywood. But frankly, so many people are not willing to take that risk unless they know that it's going to make a profit.
Exactly. I fully agree. And I think that, no one is saying that, all movies and TV shows that revolve around marginalized people have to exclusively be created, produced, written, directed by people from that community. But, you know, the dream would be that everyone can write stories about all different types of communities without having to rely on harmful stereotypes and negative depictions. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We live in a white Christian male dominated society, so it makes that kind of theoretical living very difficult to achieve. The problem that a lot of authors face when writing about communities that they don't exist in is the fact that they don't ask the important questions like you just brought up. For instance, am I creating these characters with an understanding that what I'm writing is an authentic part of the experience in that community? And am I the right person to tell this story? Like, for example, most people could imagine how difficult it could be coming out as a gay person in a religious household. But a straight person who has never struggled with their sexuality or grappled with coming out in a religious family will never be able to provide the story with the nuance specific to that experience. That's the key that so many producers and writers and executives miss when they are creating stories for marginalized communities. Like, just like you brought up with Encanto, let's take a look at a show like Pose. Sure, a talented writer like Ryan Murphy could imagine what it would be like to be gay in the 1980s. However, as a white gay man, he will never be able to grasp the experience of what it's like to be gay and Black in the 80s or struggling with HIV. So his inclusion of Our Lady J, an HIV positive trans woman, Janet Mock, a Black trans woman, and Steve Canals, an openly queer Afro-Latino man, in the writing process provides such a successful show with nuance that made it so relatable and so successful to so many different audiences. There's a level of sensitivity and awareness that is necessary for a person to have if they are not a part of that community, but they're taking on the process of writing for that community. I know that I've probably told this story before on the podcast, but about a year ago, I was writing a story or developing a story that was going to include an Italian American character. However, when I originally approached how I was going to introduce the character to the story, I immediately thought of a mob storyline. But before I started writing, though, I did a quick Google search to see whether or not, writing a story about a character who happened to be Italian and having mom connections was racist. And guess what Google said? Absolutely fucking yes. Like, that is fully racist as shit. And I was able to adjust my approach accordingly, right? But I don't have the same, I don't have Marvel, Disney, or some big name author money to afford sensitivity readers, test groups, and surveys. But if I was able to use Google for free to see if the way I was approaching a community I wasn't a part of was racist, then I know it would be a cakewalk for them with all the resources at their disposal. So I don't really give a fuck about the whole we'll try harder next time spiels or donating money hoping to make it all go away, but not actually making a commitment to change. Like in 2022, with so many examples of people doing the work and it paying off, like with Black Panther, it's looking less and less like honest mistakes and looking a lot more like a choice not to do it better. But Daquon, I wanted to ask you, do you think it is ever okay to tell stories about a community that you are not a part of? And is there a way to do it respectfully?
I think when it comes to telling a story, when you are creating a character, you have to walk in the shoes of said character. And that's not to say that you have to be all of the identities that the character you are writing is, but it's all about understanding where they come from. If you're writing a character from a particular place, go to that place, see what it's like, see the sights, see the type of things that that character would be growing up around and doing and living with. It's not just enough to write a character and say, all right, this is going to be this Black person from New Orleans. Like, no, go to New Orleans, understand what Black people in New Orleans have been going through, do your research, study that history. And then once you can basically walk in the shoes of that character, that is when it's okay to write that character, because it comes off as disrespectful when you don't even afford the time to give a character the respect that they deserve. It comes off as disrespectful when you basically create a character without actually caring to get that character as authentic as possible. And like you said, you did it through a super simple Google search. These are multi-million and multi-billion dollar companies and studios. They can afford to hire a sensitivity reader. They can afford to hire somebody to just be a part of the process, to get that actual experience and to understand what that character would be around, so that they are not writing bruv and by Odin Fade and in his Asgardian hood. Like, no. Actually create characters that are real and authentic and not these caricatures.
Daquon, say that one more time, bitch. Create real people. Real people.
Real people. Not these by Odin's Fade caricatures. I can't get over that.
That shit. Baby, what black it's like they literally Googled, like, okay, let me watch some movie about black people that was written by a white person. Ah, yes. Odin's Fade.
They probably heard somebody say catch this fade or something like that. And just like completely took it out of context. Did not think about actually how AAVE as a grammatical and its grammatical structures actually work.
In an article written on koimoy.com, we learned that One Direction was one of the biggest names in the music industry until they fell apart. And even now, they have millions of fans who are eagerly waiting for the members to have a reunion. The boys were a global sensation a few years back, and all of them are doing well as individual artists now, after calling it quits as a band in 2016. In a recent conversation, Liam Payne brought up the who was the foundation of One Direction debate, and pop star Lizzo doesn't seem to agree. Liam Payne appeared as a guest on Logan Paul's podcast, Impulsive, and claimed that he was the foundation of One Direction, saying, quote, "From what I've heard, part of the reason One Direction was made was because of Simon's promise to me." Explaining how he has never said this out loud before, he went on to further state that, so he was kind enough to start with my face and work around with the rest. Now, coming back to how Lizzo got involved in the whole debate, all of it started when the About Damn Time singer was reacting and commenting on a series of current affairs. According to People magazine, speaking about Liam Payne's take on One Direction, she said, quote, "I don't know who lied to that poor boy, but he was not the front man." So, Daquon, I want to ask you, do you agree with the shade Lizzo threw at Liam?
I can't because to pull from the iconic Tiffany Pollard, somebody lied to him several times and told him that he was the front man of One Direction, and he is nothing like that. He is nothing of the sort. Because what is this? What are you actually saying? Anybody who was a fan of One Direction knows that Liam was not the front man at all. At all. Even if you think about like the most popular people from One Direction, you think of people like Harry Styles or Zayn Malik, because those were the people that like had the fans in a chokehold. I'm sure Liam had, his little fan club that made
not his little.
at
you get that little job. You get that little job.
A little something. But to say that this entire group, this entire boy band was centered around him, it's ridiculous to think about. And I think that it's one of those things where, sometimes people just need to stir up something to remain relevant. I mean, I'm not going to say that Liam
Daquon.
Payne is the most irrelevant member of One Direction, but, Zayn had his solo career and he broke out first. Harry Styles is Harry Styles. He's everywhere. And even some of the other members like Niall wrote so much for One Direction. Like, he was one of the songwriting core. So it's like, what do you do successfully? Quickly.
Daquon! Oh my God! Baby, you got your reading glasses on today. You got your not some people have to stir up controversy to remain relevant. But I don't know. I think that this is a classic case of arrogance plus audacity. And Liam apparently has which said
caucasity.
The caucasity of it. And he has plenty of it to spare. Like, he thought he really served the children with this comment, as if people couldn't do one Google search and completely discredit the entirety of what he said. Like, now this is no shade, but
no, throw the shade. Throw the shade. Throw the shade.
Right. But like, I'm not gonna lie, Daquon. When I saw him cross my timeline in this interview, in the famous words of Miss Keke Palmer, I hate to say it, I hope it doesn't sound ridiculous, I don't know who this man is. It's like I was never like a fan of One Direction growing up, but because of how big boy bands were back in the day, you recognize a few faces and names here and there. Like, the only members I knew from One Direction were Zayn, Harry Styles, and Louis Tomlin, I think. Thomas or something, I don't know. Thomason. But I had to, Google the group to find out who Liam was and how he came to the conclusion that the group was made around him. And Daquon, do you want to know what I found when I Googled who was the lead vocalist of One Direction? According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, it was Harry Styles. But what really gets me about this is the fact that he was like, I've never said this out loud, but I was the reason One Direction was started. I was the foundation. And essentially what he was trying to say, whether it was intentional or not, was that he was the reason the other group members had a chance at stardom, which in my opinion reveals a lot about Liam's character. Now, obviously, I don't know him personally or any of the members of One Direction, but even if, for argument's sake, Daquon, he was the reason why the group was formed, right? It actually makes people take a closer look at his career trajectory in comparison to his other group members. So let me adjust my glasses. For example, in their solo careers, Liam is currently sitting with 24 award nominations and 6 award wins. Okay, not bad.
Okay.
Zayn Malik is currently sitting with 38 nominations and 16 award wins. Okay, also interesting. And Harry Styles is currently sitting with 121 award nominations and over.
You could have stopped 40... there.
And listen, bitch, over 43 wins, one of which includes a Grammy for Best Solo Performance for Watermelon Sugar. Or that net worth-wise, Liam is sitting at 70 million. Zayn is sitting at 75. And Harry Styles is sitting at a cool 100 million. So with that being said, Liam, I think that this was a comment that you should have kept to yourself, because I don't think that you want people comparing your star power to the other members of your former band. But moving on, you can't let numbers make you feel so inadequate that you feel the need to put others down to feel better about the position you're in, especially if you don't have the receipts to back up those claims. And even if you did, there will always be someone more successful than you, with more money than you, more fans than you, and more accolades. I think what many people don't get about being successful is that it has nothing to do with everyone else. Like, real superstars in every career field don't quantify their success in comparison to others. Like, real superstars use the success of others as a motivation to achieve greatness, but not as a qualifier or measure for their own. Like, I've learned that success has nothing to do with who's the best, who has the most of this or that. It's about being better than where you were before. Like the only person in the world that you need to compete with is yourself. The only person that you should be working to one up is you. Like if you have worked and put yourself in a better position than you were last year, last month, or even last week, then you are a success. But Daquon, what do you think? Like, do you think real superstars have to say they are superstars, or do they just let their work speak for itself?
Absolutely not. Like, if you are really that bitch, people are going to know that you are indeed that bitch. And so when I heard this comment, I was like, this is like Latavia being like, I was the lead vocalist of Destiny's Child. No, you weren't, girl. The receipts show it's not true. Or when Carlos Pinavega was like, oh, remember when Nickelodeon was trying to make Kendall the front person of one time Big Time Rush? And I'm like,
Yeah,
trying? You
trying
mean
very
he
hard.
was? Because that's the facts of the situation. And so I think a lot of, going back to Destiny's Child, when it comes down to the core members of Beyonce, Kelly Rowland, and Michelle, they are a group. They don't belittle each other to bring up their successes.
Exactly.
I remember, I think it was like legendary when Kelly Rowland was a guest judge and one of the judges was like trying to shade Michelle. And Kelly was like, I'm not doing that. Like, nope, we're not featuring that. Because she knows that she doesn't have to put other people down in her group to know that she is a bad bitch. Because at the end of the day, all three of them are bad bitches. And they bring each other up. And I think that is true superstar quality.
Yeah.
It's not just enough to have the talent, because so many people can have the talent. It's not just enough to have the work ethic, because so many people can put in that work, put in that practice, and get to a certain level. But a true superstar is somebody who name you not only know, but you respect. It's that
Yeah.
person that brings people up around them and not just themselves. It's that person where if somebody is having a bad day, you know that you can count on them to bring you up, and they're never going to put other people down because their stardom speaks for themselves. Their work, their resume, which is real long,
Yeah.
speaks for itself.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I think that there's so many people who get the misconception that, the star is the loudest person in the room. They're the one who they always put people down. They're the diva or whatever the case may be. And I think that, like you said, like with people like, Kendall or Beyonce or, the people who were the quote unquote breakout stars, it's like they never had to put anybody else down because they just were bad bitches. Like if I'm a
Right.
bad bitch, I don't have to tell anybody I'm a bad bitch. You can see it. You can see it very clearly. Like, and I think that that's where a lot of people make that mistake, is that they have this idea in the back of their mind that in order for me to be the best, I've got to make sure everybody knows I'm the best. I have to say it out loud. And you always can tell an insecure person by how they talk about people who have helped them in their journey, because the reality is, if we're not trying, I don't think that when we look at groups and we look at people in a kind of dynamic or whatever, no one person is the star. No one
Right.
person is the quote unquote. This person might have had more, like I said, more accolades and more fans or whatever, but no one person is a star when it comes to a group effort, because all the parts of the mechanism make it successful. Kelly, Beyonce, Michelle, all being together made Destiny's Child. It wasn't just Beyonce's group. It wasn't Beyonce and friends. It wasn't Michelle and friends. It wasn't Kelly and friends. It was all of them together that made a united front. Just like me and Daquon, neither one of us are the quote unquote star of Melanin Margin. This is our show. Our bad bitchiness can exist in the same space at the same time.
Period.
Exactly.
And I think that's so important to remember, because at the end of the day, it is a group. People are coming to see the group, and they're coming to see everyone. And we see so many times when you have this group dynamic and somebody leaves, slowly that group starts to deteriorate because it's all about working as a unit. And if you have to come on and like knock your other, your former cat or group members, then it shows how much a part of the group you really were. It shows that you are more focused on your own success than the success of the group itself.
Man, and I think too, I want to add this one other thing too, Daquon. Like, I think it's also just, why are you not taking pleasure in seeing your friends succeed? You know what I'm saying? If
Right.
y'all are in a group, if either one of us does something outside of Melanin Margin, because we have our own careers, we have our own journeys that we're doing, and I'm not gonna sit here and look at Daquan's success being like, oh girl, oh bitch, I did that, or if it wasn't for me, like none of that shit. If this show helps either one of us to get success outside of it or together, it's all success. It's all appreciated. It's all amazing. And I think that there are a lot of people who don't know how to just be happy for others. I think there's a lot of this that comes from a lot of insecurity about their own talents, because I don't need to put Daquon down to know that I'm successful. And Daquon has to put me down and know that they are successful. You know what I mean?
Right. So, in an article written by Emmy Harrison West, we learned that for the upcoming musical fantasy film Matilda, Emma Thompson has been pictured reportedly wearing a fat suit for her role as the fictional headmistress, Agatha Trunchbull. Harrison West reports that as a bigger woman, she finds this caricature of her body type utterly dehumanizing and degrading. She goes on to say that plus size women, especially, are often punished for being the size they are, as they're seen to be rejecting the strict confines of society. She says to say that prosthetics for fat characters are designed to be ugly. They're wobbly, dimpled, grotesque, humiliating, and don't treat the plus size community with the dignity or respect they deserve. It's hardly a coincidence that actresses that do wear fat suits often portray characters that are unloved, undesirable, and often non sexual as well. Harmful stereotypes and fat phobia still exist, and slimmer actresses are still heaving themselves into heavy foam prosthetics without feeling the repercussions. They just get paid to pretend to be overweight. This also isn't the first time that being overweight has directly been connected to the characterization of a villain or undesirable character in a story. Ursula from The Little Mermaid, Governor Ratcliffe in Pocahontas, and Dudley Dursley were all portrayed as gluttonous villains who overindulge. Dolores Umbridge, one of the most hated villains from Harry Potter, was described in the book to be a short, squat woman resembling a large, pale toad with a broad, flabby face, a wide, slack mouth, and a little neck. And so, with all of that being said, Andre, do you think that fat phobia is still a major issue in Hollywood?
100,000%.
A
And it's
million percent.
like really like, all the percents. Like, it's very evident just about honestly everywhere. Like, we've discussed this before on our episode titled Fat Phobia, but this is hardly a conversation that can only be unpacked in one sitting. Like, it has been shoved in our faces in just about every major media outlet that being fat is not a desirable quality to have. In comedies, being fat is played up for laughs or just an indicator of an unlikable character that audiences can are meant to hate on. In dramas, it's often synonymous with some type of weight loss journey. And even in sci-fi, fat people are often characterized as monstrous or evil. Like, the one thing that remains in all of those different genres is one simple fact: that society views fatness as something to be discarded, feared, and made fun of. Like, let's take the show Martin, for example. There was a
Hmm.
character on the show named Big Shirley, whose main characteristic, as described by other characters, was just that she was a plus-sized, fat, tall woman. Now, in one of the few appearances she made on the show, her walk toward Martin's apartment building was played up so much by the writers, with them having the apartment building literally shake and rumble as if her steps were causing an earthquake. Like, In her other appearance, she was seen as to be so large that only her torso was visible on screen, and a burp so loud and so strong that it caused a windstorm in the bar. And then let's look at the Parkers as another example. The only reason that Professor Ogilvy didn't show interest in Miss Parker was the fact that she was a plus size woman, which the writers had no problem with pointing out often during the show's run. Not to mention the fact that pretty much every major protagonist in just about every major television series and film is either slim or muscular. I mean,
Right.
the few times we've seen plus-sized women depicted on screen in a positive light is usually when they are a particular type of curvy. Very much the woman whose weight displays more in their thighs and their butt rather than their stomachs. It's almost as if Hollywood just can't seem to fathom a fictional universe where a plus sized person's entire identity isn't just them being big. And even in shows where all of the characters are in relationships and having sex, the plus size character is always unable to find someone to hook up with or date because why? You guessed it, because their whole character arc is about them overcoming their struggles with their weight. Or even worse, it's about them finding the white knight whose only defining characteristic is that he or she doesn't care about their weight, and that the plus size character is expected to remain with them because in the writer's eyes, that's the best they can do, or this is as good as it's going to get for them. They don't get to play the field and date around like the skinny characters do, because any relationship they find in these fatphobic shows is just a stroke of good luck that will never happen again, like lightning striking twice, which is complete and utter bullshit. But Daquon, I want to pass the question back to you. What do you think? Is Hollywood still having an issue with fatphobia?
Have they ever stopped? Because the thing that is most frustrating is like, even beyond like the stereotypical depiction of fat characters, whatever. If you are going to have a fat character, even if they have these negative stereotypes, why not hire a fat actress or actor? If you're going to have a plus size character, why not have a plus size person playing said character? Because here's the thing, skinnier actresses and actors can always play the skinny protagonist. They can also play the plus size villain. Plus size people will never be able to play that skinny protagonist because so often people cannot see that skinny protagonist as being anything other than slim or muscular or whatever. Having a plus size person in that role would break the continuities of the character and is taking you out of the actual plot because it really wouldn't happen. And it's like, there are plus size people who are desirable. Like, it happens every single day.
Plenty.
And so every single second, every minute, like all the time.
A plethora.
A plethora. And so it's really frustrating when we have things like this where you could have just hired a plus size person and not go through all of these prosthetics and everything. And even when you do create the prosthetics, like this writer said, you make them so grotesque and everything like that. You emphasize certain features that are undesirable. Like, you literally make like cellulite and stretch marks so extreme that it's apparent. And so you often create all of these negative stereotypes of bigger people's bodies. And going back to the whole argument of how plus size characters are often villainized, it's frustrating to see that because you are literally dehumanizing people. Because at the end of the day, there are plenty of plus size people, and you are saying that because you are plus size, that there is this intrinsic moral value assumed by your weight. If you are plus size, then you have to be gluttonous. If you are plus size, you have to be villainous. You have to be mean and nasty and a slob and all of these different things. And it's like, no, plus size people are still people. They still run the gamut of all different types of, personalities and abilities and everything like that. So it's like you cannot create a personality value just because of somebody's body type.
Exactly. And I think it's, you know, like I think it's also the fact that we've like so closely associated being skinny with being healthy. Like if people see a big person just living their best life, eating pizza, society has taught us to look down on that person or worry, quote unquote, about that person's health because any kind of jiggle in the stomach area is considered to be a sign of obesity. Even if that person was working out every day, celebrating some major accomplishment by eating this pizza, or even have a clean bill of health from their doctor, people just don't care. Yet, if those same fucking people see a skinny or muscular person eating a pizza, their minds do go to those assumptions that the person is just having a good time, treating themselves, or so on. You know, no one wonders if that skinny person, a muscular person, has anorexia, bulimia, or has been told by their doctors that their intense working out is actually unhealthy for them, unless they are noticeably sick. We have been taught that desirable, healthy people have to look a certain way, and any deviation from the standard quote unquote hot person look is considered to be an indication of declining health. Like we've seen this everywhere on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube with like, mukbang videos where like
Hmm.
skinnier people and big people will proportionally eat the exact same amount of food, but their comment sections are vastly different, even though they are filled with the same people who watched both videos. Like these people don't give a fuck about anyone's health, and just about all of them are uncertified to give medical advice. I mean, and hell, shit, even the ones that are certified have no idea and usually don't care what lifestyle choices a person has been making or is making to come to an accurate, unbiased conclusion about the status of that person's health. But we know that medical fat phobia is a thing, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But
Right.
society has just trained us to think that gaining weight or being big is a nasty, gross, or unhealthy. But we need to learn that fatness and grossness are not synonymous. Like gross and nasty and unhealthy people exist in all shapes and sizes, just as clean, healthy people can exist in all shapes and sizes.
Right.
Personality traits and hygiene has nothing to do with the weight and everything to do with the character of the person. But I want to ask you, Daquon, like, why do you think that weight has been so inextricably tied to whether a person is considered undesirable, lazy, gross, or hateful or something?
Let's say it again: racism, anti-blackness. Like, we know that throughout history, there was plenty of times when being curvier, having bigger hips, bigger thighs, being a little bit thicker was seen as more desirable. It meant that you were healthy because you were, eating
Eating.
proportionately and, not suffering from famine.
Yeah.
And so, of course, with the advent of slavery and all of these different things, white people looked at black bodies, which were naturally curvier and thicker in certain areas, and was like, let's create zoos of black people and like just like make fun of their bodies because like, oh my gosh, like this black woman's breasts are so big that she could literally toss it over her shoulder to feed a baby. And they create these caricatures of blackness because of their bodies. And that has been so ingrained in our society since it was founded. And so often, like you said, we have people being like, well, I'm only caring about their health. And it's like, you are stopping at physical health, which is a myth
Ooh.
by itself, but you are stopping at the physical health. What about the mental health? What about the
Mm.
emotional health, the
Mm-hmm.
spiritual health? All
Mm-hmm.
of these do play a role in somebody's weight and their body and things like that. Because for so many people, the size of their body is pretty genetic. Like your body will sustain whatever body size that it was meant to be. So even if you try all of these different crash diets and everything like that, if your body was not meant to be that skinny, it's going to come right back to what size is its equilibrium. And
Mm-hmm.
you also don't realize how much, you know, history plays a role in that, because for so many people, science has shown that for descendants of people that have gone through all these different types of famines and everything like that, people's bodies evolve and change to hold more weight and fat and everything like that because of the generations of people that starved to death during these famines. So it's like there's so much science out there that proves that you're wrong, but all of a sudden this gym bro with no type of medical or any type of science degree whatsoever is the authority of what's being healthy. Because let's look at somebody like Lizzo, who has talked about this so many times, but you can watch a Lizzo performance and she is on that stage dancing, moving up and down, going left and right, all everywhere in between, singing, rapping, playing the fucking flute. And she's doing all of that and has amazing breath control.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, some of these skinnier pop divas are sitting in the middle of the stage singing and they can barely catch their breath. And so it's like you say it's all about worrying about that person's health, and it's like they're not showing signs of really being that unhealthy. Like they are outperforming so many people who do have skinnier body types. And even if that's not the case, even if somebody's health is, not that great, they don't have that ability to exercise or have anything like that, somebody's health is their personal information.
Mm-hmm.
I don't come to you and be like, oh, what about that time in third grade when you caught pneumonia? What about that time in seventh grade you got that ear infection? Like, can I see your ear? Can I get all
Yeah.
up in your ear? Like, no, because the things that you go through, your journey with your health is your own. And me being an outsider that's not living in the body that you possess has no obligation to any of your personal health information. And so, even if somebody is quote unquote unhealthy, that's their life, not yours. And you are, especially these random people on the internet, you are not their friend, you are not their partner, you are not their loved ones in any of that way. So, why are you worrying about their health like that?
Yep.
And that's on period. Now, the table is always hot with current events and social issues, but sometimes the heat can get a little intense. Let's turn the temp down, take a breather, and get into this week's topical down. Andre, I want to ask you, what is your communication style when it comes to conflict and confrontation?
So I think I've talked about this a little bit before on the podcast, but I've never been one to kind of beat around the bush. Like I'm not a passive aggressive type of person. I kind of grew up around that kind of, argument style. For
Mhm.
me personally, I don't have time to beat around the bush. I don't have time to help you figure it out or whatever. Like I'm going to tell you up front, hey, you said this hurt me. This may not have been your intention, but I was hurt. And I try to use the I statements or whatever, but I'm not really big on the whole hiding what I'm feeling or whatever. Like if you've hurt my feelings or you made me feel some type of way, I will bring it to you. You're gonna know. And I try my best not to come off as aggressive or like, as kind of nasty or nothing like that. But I definitely do let people know, like, hey, just so you know, I love and care about you. Or if it's somebody, if a professional situation, saying like, hey, listen, I know we have a really good working relationship and I want to keep and maintain that. So that's why I'm bringing this to you to let you know X, Y, and Z made me feel X, Y, and Z way. And I'd appreciate it if you didn't do that again. And if the
Right.
issue persists, I bring it up to higher levels. And with friendships, if the issue persists, it's time to let things go. So yeah, my confrontation style is very much so direct. I'm very direct and I'm very streamlined. Like, hey, baby, point A, B, and C. And D's is point, and I mean D, E, and F to get you situated. That you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what about you?
I think that's why we work well together, because I'm somebody that needs somebody to be direct. Like when people are all over the place and beating around the bush, and I'm like, give it to me straight. Like I don't need all the bullshit.
Yeah.
And for me, it's one of those things where I personally communicate in a pretty reciprocal manner. If you are beating around the bush and like doing all of these things and like talking behind my back and not
Oh yeah.
actually talking to me,
I got you. Yeah.
I'm not going to talk directly to you because I know you're not actually going to care about what I'm saying
Yeah.
because you didn't show that respect to me to come to me first. You wanted to go whatever your way. So, when it comes to different types of conflict and confrontation, I am the most confrontational person with social anxiety that you will meet. Like, I don't want to be confrontational and
Yeah.
deal with conflict and anything like that, but if I have to, I will.
Mhm.
And a lot of the times, it's me being like, since you don't want to respect me with direct communication, you're done. You're out of here.
Exactly.
I don't have my scissors, but snip,
Yeah,
snip,
exactly.
cut off.
But no, and I also expect that from people in my life. Like I
Right,
don't like, especially in relationships, romantic or platonic. I'm very much so need people in my life who are also direct with their feelings too. So
right,
like, if you're feeling some type of way and I don't know, and you're kind of giving me and I think what really gets me is that some people try to make you feel like you're crazy when you notice the energy in the relationship has shifted. It's like you're sitting here telling me that there's nothing wrong, but the subtle things that you are doing is showing me that there is something wrong, and you're just not telling me. I don't have time for people who navigate life that way. Some people have
right.
the patience for that, to be like, oh babe, tell me, oh, I'll get back and forth, whatever. I'm not doing that. If you are not mature enough to let me know what's wrong, then you are obviously not mature enough to have the kind of relationship I want us to have.
Right. Patience is a virtue, and it's a virtue I choose to have and choose not to have whenever I need to. Because like you, I need that direct feedback. And when I'm going through something, if I have a problem with somebody, I follow the rule of if I don't say something within 48 hours, then it's obviously not important enough for me to just like think about anymore. So it's like 2 days pass and I haven't confronted somebody about something, then obviously it wasn't pressing enough for me to confront them during that time. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that, you know, pressing to hold a grudge or hold it in. And it's like, I'm gonna release this, let it go, and move on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a big problem with that too. Like, also understanding that once you confront someone about something and they make the necessary changes, let it go. You can't say, oh, I've forgiven you, or oh, it's good now, and then turn around and do the same shit. Or turn around and bring up that shit over and over again. Like, that's why I think we talked about this a little bit in when we talked about cheating, but it's like, you know, if you decide to forgive someone for something, you are giving them a blank slate. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you need to forget what happened, but you're saying I have restored that trust in our friendship or in our relationship now. So even though I'm aware of what you did before, I am telling you now that I moved past that. You can't move past something if you keep bringing it up and you keep bringing it and throwing it back in somebody's face. If that's the case, then you never really forgive them. You never forgave them in the first place.
Right.
You never let it go. So I think that there's a lot of people in the world who don't know how to do that. Like I don't hold grudges. If I don't like you, I just don't like you. Like, we're just done. You know what I'm
Period.
saying? Like
Like I don't have the energy to give you that energy. If
exactly.
I actively hate you and despise you, I'm not going to spend the energy hating on you. I'm going to let you go and do whatever you need to do. Have the life you deserve.
Exactly. Now, so many children grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. So it's time for a change. Let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. In an article written by MIT's program, we learned that African American inventor Marie Van Britten Brown contributed to a safer society with her invention of the first home security system. Her invention was the first closed circuit television security system, and it paved the way for the modern home security systems used today. Brown was born in 1922 in Jamaica, Queens, New York. She started off her career working as a nurse. Her husband, Albert Brown, was an electronics technician. As a nurse, Brown worked long hours and would return home late at night. And her husband did too, because he had irregular hours. So she often was alone at night. Fearful of being vulnerable in a high crime neighborhood, Brown decided to figure out a way to see who was at her door if she ever heard knocking. In 1966, Brown, along with the assistance of her husband, invented a security system which consisted of 4 peepholes, a sliding camera, television monitors, and a two-way microphone. These items created a closed-circuit television system for surveillance, also known as CCTV. With multiple peepholes, the sliding camera was able to capture images of people who were at different heights. The two-way microphone allowed Brown to communicate with the person outside. She also had a remote that would allow her to unlock the door at a safe distance. Lastly, she could press an emergency button that would send an alarm to the police or security. Now, in 1969, Brown and her husband received a patent for the invention under the US, and her invention was recognized in the New York Times, and she received an award for the National Scientists Committee for her work. Brown passed away at the age of 76 in 1999, but her legacy continues. Brown's contribution to home security led her invention to be cited in 32 subsequent patent applications. Her invention formed a system that is still relevant in today's society, with use in places such as banks, office buildings, and apartment complexes.
Do we need to say it? Let's say it.
Black women.
Gotta love first a black inventor, a black woman inventor. Like, it's just great to hear.
It's called being that bitch. We magic, baby. Black people magic.
Magic. So for my We Did That, let's talk about Vivian Robinson. Vivian Robinson was an avid lover and patron of the theatrical arts. While working as a clerk and typist for the Amsterdam News in 1966, she would eventually become the newspaper's theater critic. It was during this time that she noticed many small and black theater companies were not getting much coverage or recognition. So in 1973, she founded the Audelco Committee, quote, to generate recognition, understanding, and awareness of the arts in Black communities and to build new audiences for nonprofit theaters and dance companies, end quote. The Audelco Awards became a regular celebration and showcase for the often overlooked Black talent in theater. Robinson and the Audelco Awards helped to reshape Black portrayals in theater by promoting meaningful portrayals of Black people in roles that uplifted Black pride and dignity during a time when very few of those roles even existed. Although Robinson passed away in 1996 due to heart failure, her legacy of the Audelco Committee lives on, with them celebrating their 49th annual Audelco Awards this past year, 2021.
The flavors are melting on my tongue.
Once again, God. Black women.
Black women. Consistently. I just love hearing about this stuff, because it's so crazy that I didn't even know that a Black woman invented the closed circuit television and security system. I didn't even know that.
Right.
Or to know that we created our own, Black woman created a Black recognition award ceremony. Like, come on.
It's giving. It's just giving.
It's just giving. It's just giving. Now, as always, thank you all so much for watching, and keep the conversation going down in the comment box below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you are listening to us on our podcast, please rate and review on whatever platform you're using. You can also follow our podcast on Instagram and TikTok at the Melanin Margin, for updates of new content.
And if you'd like to follow each of us, our handles are at Daquon MUE
and at Andre Talks a Lot.
Now we will see you all next time on the Melanin Margin, where our goal is always to bring the marginalized to the spotlight in any way we can. Goodbye now.